Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our Senior Dog Week. Today we are at Empowered Canine Physio, can't even say it, with Zoe, chatting about senior dogs in terms of movement, exercise and the things to look out for. So Zoe, with a senior dog, what kind of things do owners need to look out for in terms of how the dog moves, how they carry themselves, what would be the signs for kind of concern, or just signs that might indicate that they need a little check?
Yeah, so there's kind of lots of things that you can think about for this. I think in terms of what owners notice, the biggest thing tends to be more behaviour changes rather than actually necessarily like postural changes. So things like if the dog's not coming to greet them at the door anymore when they get home, just because they don't want to get out of their bed. If the dogs start kind of lagging behind them on a walk rather than being in front of them, or if that behaviour on the walk changes towards the end of a walk when they're starting to get really tired. Yeah, like if they're starting to slow down and just like really drag behind, or at the owner's side rather than off out in front, things like that. Reluctance to jump in and out of the car is quite a big one as well, and usually quite an early sign if the dogs are deciding they're not wanting to do that effort, and it's starting to kind of hurt their joints a little bit to jump in and out. So the behaviour changes are usually quite a key thing that owners describe and don't necessarily think of as being linked to kind of maybe pain and arthritis as the dogs are getting older. They kind of just go, oh, they're just getting older, but there's stuff you can do for that. It's not just that they're getting older and you can't do anything.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot. Certainly hear it a lot where it is just put to old age. Yeah. But actually, as you say, there's so much we can do to support them and actually make sure they have a longer life. Yeah. Because those things can still be managed in kind of pain-free way, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
So if owners came to you and thought, oh, you know, they're not quite right, or if they were referred from a vet, or whatever, however way, you know, whichever way they get here, what kind of things would you look out for?
So for me, I would then be looking more at the posture changes as well as the behaviour changes. So how does that dog move from sitting to standing or laying down to getting up? Are they pulling themselves up with their front legs and it looking like a real stiff effort, or rather than actually pushing up with their back legs like they should be? So owners might also notice that they just look more laboured, moving from lying down in their bed to getting up, and kind of are a bit stiffer for a few steps before they start moving normally. So things like that. How they're stood as well. So actually when they're stood, are they stood in what we'd call like a nice square balanced posture? Or are they actually really leaning forward and all that weight through their front legs, and are those back legs really wide or narrow together? So
how they carry
how they carry themselves. Like we're all really guilty of slouching. So some dogs will, but actually if that starts to change from their normal,
it's what the norm is, isn't it?
And actually if the owners are noticing that actually when they're stood they're just not using their back legs as much, or they're really close together and they never used to be close together, that's usually
change.
That's usually then an indication that okay, something else might be going on, and typically with the older dogs that is arthritis.
Cool. Why would we choose swimming for an older dog or dog that suffers with arthritis?
So the hydrotherapy, whether that's kind of swimming in the pool or with the water treadmill, are both really beneficial because of that water environment. It gets all of the weight off those joints, so they haven't got that painful like loading force when they're walking on land. So every time they put that leg down to the ground, if they're really arthritic or just weaker because they're a bit older, that's really hard. And actually in the water's taking all of that body weight for them, so they can do these movements so much easier and with so much more comfort that you can start to get that improved movement and use to build up more muscle to then transfer to their activities on land.
When they are
to then support their movements when they're at home and out and doing their daily life. And it's not about getting, with older dogs especially, it's not necessarily about getting them back to being able to do an hour's off-lead walk.
It's just to get them comfortable.
And it's that quality of life, and actually are they comfortable doing those daily movements and wanting to get them back to kind of maybe coming to greet the owner at the door, because actually they show that they feel more comfortable to do that.
That they're happier to move. And presumably you would start them quite slow if they new to swimming?
Yes, yeah, it's water's not every dog's favourite thing. We personally do a lot of we call it like acclimatisation sessions. So the first time they visit us, it's actually a land-based session. So they meet us, they see the clinic. It's not we do a physio assessment, and then their sessions after that would be the water-based kind of physio with the hydrotherapy. So just introducing them to it, like this is what happens, this is not scary. Might even, for some dogs, if they're really nervous or really not sure on water, that could just be standing in the pool for the first time, getting them used to that environment. Here's some toys, some treats, if it's not too scary, and then just building from there based on the dog's response and their behaviour, rather than just literally chucking them in the deep end.
Because I guess it can be a bit nerve-wracking for any dog. But senior dogs are already more sensitive, aren't they? To kind of change and new stuff.
Definitely. And they're going to tire a lot quicker as well, so they're not actually just swimming the whole time. That's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for getting that nice movement when they're swimming and it being constructive.
And more effort.
And that's so much more effort for them when they're older. So actually for our older dogs, they might only be in the pool for 15-20 minutes, or even in the treadmill, because standing for that length of time is really hard.
Yeah, because they wouldn't stand that long normally, would they?
Exactly.
They're either moving or they're probably sitting or lying down. That makes sense. And in terms of swimming, so obviously, I mean, I can imagine most dogs like to swim in dirty stuff. Green ponds and lakes and things. Is that an appropriate thing to do with your older dog? Just taking them, but swimming is swimming, right? Just taking them to a local lake.
Not quite. If dogs love water, they'll go in, whatever their age usually, but it's usually cold water, dirty water, the smellier the better. But from an older dog point of view, that cold water, especially over winter, is just not so great for their joints and their muscles. It's just, especially the arthritic joints, it's just going to make them feel a lot stiffer. And it's not as beneficial. Whereas our pool, we keep it heated at a nice 32 degrees, so it's lovely and warm. We wouldn't be getting in it any colder. And also not just the swimming, you can't see how they're swimming because usually the water is really dirty, dark and dirty and gross, and they might not actually be using their back legs properly or at all.
Yes, definitely. Dogs that just swim with fun, don't they?
It's a doggy paddle. So we're in with them. We want to encourage how they're using their legs to make sure they're actually using all of themselves, not just using the front legs. And then for getting in and out of water, out on walks like lakes and ponds, streams and rivers, sometimes it's quite a steep bank in and out. That's also just going to put a lot of pressure on their body that they're going to just struggle with when they're older.
And I suppose when they go in on your walks, they really just go in, paddle and come out, don't they? Like, it's not the same in a sense that is probably fine if they just walk around the edge for a minute and come out. Because they won't get that cold. But if they were going to be in that water for 20 minutes at a time, with any dog, but with an older dog, they would also get extremely cold.
And then they stay wet and cold after as well. So even once they get out,
you're going just yet. You're gonna go swim in a minute.
So even when they get out, they're still doing the rest of their walk. They're still wet and cold, and that's also not going to be so good for their joints throughout the rest of the walk.
That's it. Because they'll just be stiff. Wonderful, perfect. Thanks so much.
That's okay.
That's great. Loads of good info. We're gonna let Milo have a little swim now. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.